What's up, everybody? You're like, what the hell is that on his head? That is a sweatband because I'm going to the gym and I sweat like crazy. And so if I don't do this, it's just going to be pouring down my face the entire time. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story about how I created strategic career planning, which is sort of a big thing that I do on the side. I actually created it. It wasn't called that. It was just a program that I created with my grandfather. When I had made this decision to leave emergency medical services, which was my first professional career, and go into health policy, which there's no obvious progression for that. It's not a typical route that people take out of emergency medical services, although some have. And I didn't know quite how to do it, and I had a conversation with my grandfather, and he helped me lay out the philosophy behind it was that you should have professional experience and formal education in multiple areas in the industry in which you want to work. In my case, it was healthcare. And so I already had healthcare delivery experience and a little bit of education. I would get politics and politics policy experience, and then I would get business education and experience. And so that's sort of how it laid out. And I created this plan with the assistance of my grandfather, and I went and I executed it. Well, many years later, after I had executed it very well and achieved sort of the end goal of my first iteration of career planning, and that was to become the head of government affairs for a big hospital system, which I had done. It took me about 8 years to do that. Right after I got that job, I was at a networking event for the American College of Healthcare Executives, and I meet this guy. His name is Dr. Terry Schmidt. And Dr. Schmidt was a professor, he's a doctor in healthcare administration, and a very gregarious, open guy. And I was standing next to the food, getting some crackers, and Dr. Schmidt says, "Hello, my name's Terry Schmidt. What's your name?" And I started having a conversation with him. And he said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I'm the head of government affairs for..." And he goes, "Oh, you're a lobbyist." And I'm like, "Dude, keep it on the DL. Like, we don't use the L word after the whole Jack Abramoff trading hookers for votes scandal." And he goes, "I was a lobbyist." And I said, "Really? Who were you a lobbyist for?" And he said, "Oh, the American Medical Association, the American Ambulance Association." I said, "Whoa, that's legit lobbying. That's serious level." And he goes, "I have found that people who become lobbyists have interesting stories as to how they got there. Tell me your story." And so I tell him about how I was influenced to leave emergency medical services, by some experiences that I had. That's for another video. And how I made this plan of how I was going to do it. And he listens to the whole thing very intently, and he goes, "That's amazing." He goes, "Most people don't make plans like that." I said, "Yeah, I know. I think that's true." He goes, "Would you be able to teach that?" I said, "I don't know, maybe." He said, "Come into my class, my graduate school class, and I'm going to give you an hour. I want you to teach your method." I said, "Okay." And when Dr. Schmidt tells you you should do something, you just kind of do it. And so I went home and I sat down and I wrote out, okay, what did I do exactly? Because I did it all on Post-it notes, and I wrote out this list of all these things I did. And there was 10 steps. I'm like, 10, perfect, nice round number. I said, "Well, what would I call this?" I said, "Well, what is it?" It's career planning, but it's very strategic in the way you do it. I'll call it strategic career planning, a 10-step guide to what? To realizing your potential. So I went into this class and I gave this lecture for an hour, the basic PowerPoint, and it was very popular. So Dr. Schmidt invited me back to do it again. So I came back and I did it again, but for 2 hours, and I built it out, and I had people write down things on a on paper that they had. And then I said, you know what? I should create worksheets. And I created worksheets, loose worksheets for people to use while I was interacting with them and having them walk through the same process I walked through. And over the course of time, it became basically an 8-hour training program with its own workbook, like bound workbook. And then I started doing it all over the place because a lot of people need this. And since that time, because of Dr. Terry Schmidt, I have delivered that program to well in excess of 4,000 people in small group settings, which is pretty incredible. And it's something that I feel very passionate about because it's really helping people realize their potential. And it's something I'm going to lean into a little bit more here in the near future.